among Unrivaled fans after Rose BC trade. Could Angel Reese be making her return to Unrivaled? Now, Unrivaled flirted with this idea, okay? Here it says, on February 9th, the first ever in-season trade for the Unrivaled 3x3 women's basketball team was announced. Breeze BC.
Pure desperation. That's what we're witnessing from Unrivaled right now. The league that promised to revolutionize women's basketball just orchestrated their first ever mid-season trade, and the move they're telegraphing next has everyone talking. Angel Reese, the player who publicly said the league underdelivered on promises, is suddenly being courted back like a lifeline. So what went so wrong that they're begging someone who walked away to come save them?
Hold on. Come on, man. Get up out of here. Here it is said, Rose BC is an anomaly among Unrivaled other teams this season. Last year, Rose BC won the league championship with its roster of Chelsea Gray, Kalia Copper, Brittany Sykes, Azare Stevens, Lexi Hall, Angel Reese, and Ariel Atkins, who joined the team later in the season. Unrivaled's rosters aren't supposed to turn over from season to season. However, when it came time for Rose BC 2026 roster, it says to be released, it featured.
Here's the situation. On February 9th, Unrivaled announced their first trade ever. Rose BC sent Azura Stevens to the Mist, received guard Courtney Williams from Vinyl BC, who got Lexi Hull from the Laces. Sounds routine until you realize Rose BC is now down a forward, and their social media immediately started teasing fans with guess who the next Rose will be. The replies flooded in with one name, Angel Reese. The same Angel Reese who opted out of playing this season after saying Unrivaled fell short on what they promised her.
Rose BC is now short a player in wake of Monday's Unrivaled trade. Therefore, Rose BC Updates made a post. Can you guess who the next Rose will be? It says the replies are convinced that the team's next player will be a familiar face. Only correct answer is AR, Angel Reese. It better be Angel Reese returning the way you teasing us. And Angel Reese did say she kind of misses it, whatever. People are saying they'd be happy if she came back. I'm going to be honest. If Angel Reese went and played Unrivaled, I'll watch that first game. I want to see if she's going to be making layups or not. I want to see if she's been working on her layups. Let's stop playing games.
Think about what this trade reveals. Rose BC won the championship last year with a stacked roster. Chelsea Gray, Kalea Copper, Brittany Sykes, Azura Stevens, Lexi Hull, Angel Reese, and Ariel Powers. Championship rosters in Unrivaled aren't supposed to turn over. The whole selling point was continuity, stability, keeping teams together. But when the 2026 roster dropped, only Gray, Copper, Stevens, and Hall returned. Sykes gone, Reese gone. And now Stevens just got traded away too. That's not continuity. That's a roster falling apart.
And let's give it a listen.
How they are approaching their CBA on both sides, their proposals. Kelsey Plum was pretty optimistic. I thought the big takeaway from her was before the meeting, she talked about this game of telephone, how every time in our lives, the game of telephone, the word can get distorted. And players have talked about just wanting to get in front of the owners for this meeting. It included Nneka Ogwumike, the president, Alicia Clark, Brianna Turner, and Stephanie Dolson in attendance. Nafisa and Kelsey Plum.
Now let's talk about why this matters beyond one team. TNT has an opt-out clause after next season. Unrivaled desperately needs ratings to justify that media deal, and the numbers haven't been kind. They're in Miami with state-of-the-art facilities, paying players six-figure salaries, promising equity stakes, but viewership hasn't matched the investment. So when they start publicly flirting with bringing back a player who criticized them, who's busy filming movies and building her brand elsewhere, that tells you everything about their internal panic. They need star power, and they need it now.
It seems like the union is still kind of waiting for the league's next move, right? It seems like the W is now, it's their decision about how to respond to the former proposal from the union and what they will respond with after meeting with these people, meeting with the players in person. Hopefully, for the sake of the league and the season, that an agreement is sooner now that they've heard both sides in person. Like the reference Kelsey Plum's telephone quote, we all know messages get distorted the more they get spread. And in person is a best chance to make sure the messages in each side is heard.
Yeah, you mentioned what comes next. To my understanding, the league understands that the players expect them to respond to that proposal. That's what I was told.
But here's where it gets complicated. The CBA negotiations are happening right now, and the timing of this unrivaled desperation move matters. Players just had their first in-person meeting with WNBA owners since last fall. 40 players dialed in to hear directly from ownership about why the revenue split percentage is what it is. Kelsey Plum talked about ending the game of telephone, getting everyone in the same room to avoid distorted messages. Nneka Ogwumike, Alicia Clark, Brianna Turner, Stephanie Dolson all attended. Nafisa Collier and Kelsey Plum tried to make it but couldn't. Brianna Stewart didn't show.
And it's your point, like we are past crunch time, it feels like, and we're going to get into how this impacts teams and the league as a whole, like as we keep going through February. But I think we should definitely talk about the potential of a strike and a work stoppage. Obviously, that's underlined everything. Any good union, as I've been told many times, like prepares their players for that. But being in Philadelphia, I thought it was interesting how in one media availability, you have Azurá Stevens, who is a veteran, talking about how she finds it ridiculous. A deal is still not done. Ridiculous was her words. She seemed very frustrated that there just hasn't been movement. And she spoke really openly about being prepared for a strike. You know, she made a mention of like, you know,
And here's what's frustrating players. The league still hasn't responded to the union's proposal. They sent their terms, laid out what they want, and then waited. This meeting was the first substantive in-person discussion since September or October, which seems insane given we're in February, and training camps are supposed to start soon. The union expected a counter-proposal by now. Instead, they got a meeting where ownership explained their position but didn't commit to next steps. So now the league says they understand players expect a response, but there's still no timeline.
Financially, she's ready for that, and those types of players can be ready for that. You know, I think if you look at the executive board, most of these players can be ready for that. At the same time, Azurá was speaking, Shug Sutton was speaking to the Nine about how it's a little more unsure if she can kind of weather that storm. This is a player who was taken last in her draft class. I wrote a story about how she's Ms. Irrelevant. Like, it's more difficult for those kinds.
Meanwhile, the strike conversation is getting louder. Azurá Stevens, who just got traded in Unrivaled, spoke to Philadelphia media and called the lack of a deal ridiculous. She said she's financially prepared for a work stoppage and joked she'll enjoy her summer if it comes to that. Veterans on the executive board, players with overseas money and endorsement deals, they can weather a strike. But at the same exact time, Stevens was saying that Shug Sutton, the last pick in her draft class, told reporters she's not sure she can handle missing paychecks. That's the divide nobody's talking about publicly. So let's connect these dots. Because this is where Unrivaled's desperation and the CBA tension intersect in a way that could reshape women's basketball. Angel Reese walking away from Unrivaled wasn't just about one player's schedule. It was a statement. She said they promised things they didn't deliver. She chose movies, brand building, and rest over 6 figures and equity in a startup league. That decision sent a message to every WNBA player watching. You don't have to take every opportunity just because it pays. You can have leverage. Now Unrivaled is publicly courting her back, teasing fans, building anticipation like she's their savior. But think about what that does to their credibility. If you under-delivered the first time, why would she trust you now? What can you offer that's different? More money? That just proves the initial offer wasn't your best. Better conditions? That admits you cut corners before. Equity adjustments? Same problem. And this is happening while WNBA players are fighting for revenue sharing, guaranteed contracts, better travel conditions, expanded rosters. The union is preparing for a potential strike because ownership won't budge fast enough. Veterans like Stevens can afford to sit out. Role players like Sutton can't. That creates internal pressure the union has to manage carefully. Here's why Unrivaled's move matters in that context. It shows alternative leagues are struggling too. They promise to be different, better, more player-friendly. But they're facing the same economic realities. Viewership drives revenue. Revenue justifies investment. If TNT exercises that opt-out, Unrivaled's financial model collapses. So they're chasing star power to boost ratings, even if it means admitting their initial approach failed. For WNBA players negotiating right now, that's a warning. Alternative leagues aren't guaranteed saviors. Ice Cube's Big Three pays well but hasn't revolutionized anything. Athletes Unlimited exists but hasn't moved the needle. Unrivaled had the best funding, the best facilities, equity stakes, and they're still scrambling for ratings. That means the WNBA, for all its flaws, remains the primary platform, which gives ownership leverage. But it also means players can't afford to accept a bad deal just because alternatives are shaky. If they cave now, they're stuck for years. The next CBA negotiation won't happen until the league grows even more, and by then, ownership will have even more leverage. So the strike threat has to be real. Veterans have to be willing to sacrifice. Role players have to trust the union will support them financially if it comes to that. Angel Reese returning to Unrivaled, if it happens, would be fascinating to watch. Does she get a better deal this time? Does she publicly acknowledge what changed, or does she just show up, play, and let everyone speculate? Because how she handles it will signal to other players, whether holding out works, whether demanding better gets results, or whether leagues just wait you out until you need them more than they need you. And let's be honest about the basketball side too. Reese's game has holes. Her rebounding is elite, no question, but her finishing around the rim needs work. If she comes back to Unrivaled, we'll see immediately whether she spent this time off developing her offensive touch, or just building her brand. That matters for her WNBA value too. The Sky are paying her based on potential, but patience only lasts so long. So what happens next? The WNBA and the union are supposedly close to resuming negotiations. The league knows they need a deal before training camps start, or this becomes a full-blown crisis. Unrivaled needs Angel Reese, or someone like her to justify their existence to TNT. And players across the league are watching both situations, trying to figure out where their leverage actually lies. The truth is, women's basketball is at an inflection point. Viewership is up, sponsorship is up, interest is up, but that doesn't automatically translate to player compensation or better working conditions. It takes negotiation, leverage, and willingness to walk away. Angel Reese walked away from Unrivaled. Will WNBA players walk away from the season if the CBA doesn't meet their demands? Because that's the real question hanging over everything right now. Unrivaled calling Angel Reese isn't just about filling a roster spot. It's about admitting they need star power more than star power needs them. And if that's true for a league that promised equity and six-figure salaries, imagine what it means for the WNBA negotiation happening right now. Drop a comment and let me know, should Angel Reese go back to Unrivaled? Or does returning undercut everything her walkout represented? And do you think WNBA players are actually prepared to strike, or is this just posturing? Let's talk about it.